Alrighty, y'all. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So, today, you guys, we are making my predictions for UFC Macau. This coming up next weekend. Song versus Figueroa. And let me tell you guys, we got ourselves a very solid card overall. We got the co-main event. Mingyang versus Alonzo Menifield, Sergei Pavlovich, Tallison Teixeira, Asakura, Cameron Smotherman, Jake Matthews, Carlston Harris, Alex Alex Perez versus a real G. We got ourselves a good card overall. But I would rate it a total of a 7.5 out of 10. But without any more fooling around, let's get into the video. I think we sweep the floor with this card. Up first, we got a Lookboonmee versus Jocelyn Omar. Now, this is a fight where it's a very difficult decision to make. You got uh, Lookboonmee, who's a very good Muay Thai fighter, very good timing with the elbows, has some very good clinch work, very good knees, with a solid takedown defense. You got Jocelyn Omar, who's a solid striker, very good jiu-jitsu, and has some very dangerous submissions. Like if you look at her wins in the UFC, beating Rajal Ruiz. She got her submission win in the UFC over Corey McKenna. Started submitting Vanessa Duplomes, beating Poliana Venana, which should be cut from the UFC. Most recently losing to Mizuki Inoue, which I'm gonna be honest with you, I kind of think that's a very awkward loss because Mizuki Inoue is very inactive. She's a good fighter overall, but like I said, not very active at all. You got Lookboonmee on the other hand, who beat Denise Gomez. Had her submission win over Alessa Reed, but Alessa Reed, to be clear, guys, Alessa Reed has a terrible submission defense, terrible ground game. Is only a very good striker, and it's not that good of a fighter. She beat Bruno Brazil, obviously come from the UFC, but a solid win, beating Alesta Nunez, and then most recently losing to Alexa Tirana, which Tirana's already had 3 fights in the UFC and has been very dominant. So that's a very solid loss. So just looking at Lookboonmee's last 4 wins, they're all against solid fighters. But I feel like once you put Luma against prospects, very good prospects like Alexis Tirana, you can kind of see her flopping a little bit. Jocelyn Omar, I can't really say she's that good of a prospect after seeing that loss to Mizuki Inoue. Hey, listen, I thought she should have won this fight, man. Mizuki Inoue, before that, the last time she fought was in what, 2023. So she had came out like a 2 year out of a 2 years being inactive, and then Jocelyn lose the fight, which, like I said, still very concerning. Now listen, what I'm curious to know is that how would Loma do against a very good jiu-jitsu grappler like Jocelyn Omar, and how would Jocelyn do on the feet with Loma? Listen, because their boxing in general, like just their hands are okay, but like we talk about clinch work for Loma, she's got some very good clinch work. She's got some very good clinch work, but like what I'm afraid of is that Loma is the shorter fighter in this fight. And if she tries to close the distance, I don't know how. I think that could be bad because Omar has some very good submission threats. Is a very good submission threat. I still think Omar can still become a world champion because if you look at the strawweight division, there's not really that much of grapplers. I mean, there's some in the top, like Tabitha Ricci. No, not Tabitha Ricci. Tatiana Suarez, Verna Janjaroba, Jillian Robertson, Mackenzie Dern. But like other than that, there's not really that much threat. So I can still see her becoming a champ. But I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm gonna pick Loma Lookboonmee to win a decision. I'm not too confident in this answer. It's a very tricky fight. But I just think that looking at Omar's win over loss over Mizuki Noe, a little bit concerning. So I'm gonna pick Lookboonmee on this one. Omar needs to. If I was Omar, I would try and pull up a very quick submission win, very quickly. Try and push the pace so you can hurry up and get her out there. I feel like the longer this fight goes, the more Lookboonmee would have a possible chance of winning this fight. But give me Loma Lookboonmee to win this one by decision. Next up, we got a Zhang versus Rodrigo Vera. Now let's say we got another tricky fight on our hands. You got Zhu, who's a very explosive striker. Looking at his impressive resume, beating Mook Haugali, beating, winning this TKO win, beating Tatiana Ando, beating Shin Harchguchi, beating beat Zhang at the road to the UFC, which was a very good win. But from what I've seen from Rodrigo Vera, and I remember Rodrigo Vera was supposed to fight on the Ultimate Fighter, but since I forgot exactly who Zhu was supposed to fight originally, but since whoever he had to fight pulled out of the fight, he's now going to fight Rodrigo Vera. And Rodrigo Vera seems like the better fighter overall, the better striker, a better grappler, better timing, more durable, better cardio. I think he's the better fighter overall. And I don't know if a lot of you guys know this, but Rodrigo Vera has a win over Juan Diaz. Only guy who has a win over Juan Diaz. And Juan Diaz, we just saw him have his debut against Malcolm Wellmaker, where he looked absolutely phenomenal. Listen, man, this is a tough fight to score because it's either that Zhu beats him, but this is or Rodrigo Vera gets the better of Zhu. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys on this. Yeah, like I was saying, so Varela is the better fighter over here overall. I think he's had the better resume, but just because he's the better fighter does not mean Zoo can possibly win. Because Zoo's been on a very massive run with some very clean punches. I'm going to think this could be the best. This could be fight of the night for all we know. But looking at Varela's resume and the better fighter, better grappler. Zula has some good grappling too. Don't get me wrong; he has some very good grappling scrambles, very good. But for this specific reason, I'm going to favor Vera and finish my knockout. If Zoo can find a way to I think he's the taller fighter in this fight. I think Zoo has to be the more explosive fighter, the more consistent, dominant fighter to win this fight. Vera, I feel like he can win he can fight a close decision and still possibly win. Zoo needs to make this fight as dominant as possible, but I think he could, but I just think Rodrigo Vera is going to, possibly knock him out in like the second or third round. But give me Vera to win this one by knockout. Next up, we got up here. This is actually a fight where it's pretty tricky too. Angela Hill versus Jingnan. If you guys don't know what Xingyang is, she's probably one of the best fighters to come out of One Champions. Had a very impressive resume outside in the One Champions. Very good boxer, very good kicks, good decent grappler. But for her debut, especially that she's 38 years old, guys. A lot of people who have accomplished so much outside of the UFC wouldn't usually get into the UFC at this age. Obviously, Patricio Pitbull did, Michael Chandler did, but you don't see that very commonly. So it's tricky because even though Angela Hill we've seen a downfall a lot of Angela Hill. We've seen her beat Luna Putarera. We've seen her lose to Tabitha Ricci, which Tabitha Ricci is currently young. Even though she got dominated by Verna Jandiroba, I figured that was going to happen anyways. Beating Kelton Suarez, which Kelton Suarez has some heavy hands, a very explosive striker. I think that's a good win, especially as right now. Losing to Islam Ludana, which she takes positive for steroids, still a top fighter. Losing to Fatima Klein, which I'm gonna be honest. To be fair, went the whole 3 rounds with Fatima Klein, and listen, I didn't think that Angela Hill was going to go the whole 3 rounds with Fatima Klein. So that's very big. That's very big because Fatima Klein is very dangerous, and I think she's gonna fight Amanda Ribas at UFC Oklahoma. So yeah, this is a very tricky fight to score. But just looking at Angela Hill's as of right now, even though she's losing to top, beating some prospects, I'm going to side with Zhang on this fight by a decision. I think she wins kind of a competitive unanimous decision on this one. Angela Hill could still fight. I just think at this point of her career, she should retire. At this point, she has 18 wins, 16 losses, and nearly has the same amount of wins as her losses, which is very concerning. I wouldn't call her a legend. I would just say she was a good fighter. I wouldn't say she'll necessarily be remembered, but she'll be. But she can still fight. But give me Xiong by a decision. Next up, we move up in the bantamweight division. Next up is Ray Cerule versus Louis Gurule. Now, listen, guys. This fight is a close fight. Obviously, Ray Cerule was going to fight Jesus Algar but since Algar got injured, the fight's off. I was going to favor Cerula on that fight, but now that Louis Gurule is stepping in on short notice, I think this fight could go either way. You got Lewis, who was a very good prospect outside of the UFC, beating Nick Panini. Then getting to the UFC, losing to Odi Osborne, losing to Jesus Algar, losing to Eldon Corona, who's going to fight Stuart Nicole. And Eldon is kind of like kind of like how Joshua Van was on the rise. Then getting his first win over Daniel Barzi, which guys, I called this fight. I knew Lewis was going to win, guys. Lewis got the job done, which I'm very glad. And listen, I know he fought 4 days ago, which is very wild and very concerning. But I'm not concerning because he just fought. But I think he's the better striker in this fight. Ray, I feel like I feel like Jesus Algar was a better striker too. But Algar is kind of like a short fighter and kind of has to get closer. But Ray is a not that good of a striker at all. Good grappler, but like Lewis can stuff those takedowns and beat him up in this fight. I can see that happening. And Ray Cerule, obviously, he got his first loss over Joshua Van. Joshua Van's currently the world champion. You can't blame him for that loss. Losing to, going ahead and beating Carlos Hernandez. Looking very impressive at road to the UFC. Listen, he's a good fighter, but so is Louis Gurule, and I can still see him making his comeback here in this fight. And I think Louis Gurule wins this fight by knockout in the second round. Listen, guys, tag me in the comments if Louis Gurule loses this fight. But hey, I told y'all to tag me in the comments if he lost to Daniel Barzi. But what happened? He beat Daniel Barzi. Obviously, Daniel Barzi is a little bit over, and I feel like a lot of people overglaze Daniel Barzi. So that's like one of the main reasons why I kind of thought Louis Gorlou was going to beat him. And listen, man, Barzi, if I'm not mistaken, got cut for the UFC after that fight. So yeah, but his other three losses were all to very good fighters, and I think these guys are all better. Well, except for Jesus Algar, like Odi Osborne, Eldon Corrado. I think they're better fighters than Race Tussara. I just think Tussara's the better grappler. I feel like he's kind of like a knockoff version of Tatsuro Tara. And this guy got no head movement either. I feel like just looking at the current Japanese fighters right now, like Ray Serraro, Tatsuro Tara. I think there's another one. I forgot his name. These these guys do not know how to move their heads. That's the problem that they have with Japanese boxers, Japanese MMA fighters. They don't really move their head. That's why Tatsuro Taro lost to Joshua Van. He was getting hit a lot. And I think, Ray's the longer reach. He doesn't know how to use his reach like that. We saw that in Joshua Van fight. Even we saw that in his fight with Carlos Hernandez, man. He does not know how to use his reach very well. And for this reason, I favor Louis Gorlou. Like I said, tag me down below in the comments because it looks like Tsuro may be the favorite for the fight. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know in the comments if you guys think Ray's gonna win. I think he's gonna lose this fight. But y'all can tag me in the comments if you guys want. But give me Louis Gorlou by knockout. Next up, in the bantamweight division, is Aoriqileng versus Cody Haddon. Now, I like this fight for Cody Haddon because Cody Haddon, in my opinion, may be one of the best prospects in the bantamweight division. You have him beating Dong Il Kim, beating Raja Snippet, beating Paul Logo, beating Billy Brand, beating Dan Aguida last year, which I actually thought Cody Haddon was going to lose. Then we got as for Aoriqileng, he lost to Amen Sahabi, beat Johnny Munoz Jr., who's a pretty good fighter. Having a no contest to Daniel Marcos, which is still Daniel Marcos is a good fighter. getting dominated by Raul Rosas Jr., which that's not the end of the world. Raul Rosas Jr. just dominated Rob Font, who's a veteran. And then looked very impressive against Cody Gibson. Aoriqileng Long, he's the type of fighter where he's win or lose, he's an entertaining fighter. And that win over Cody Gibson, man, was very impressive. And that was a fight where I thought he was gonna lose, man. Aoriqileng Long's a good fighter, but Cody Haddon's the younger fighter in this fight. Aoriqileng Long's kind of an awkward, non-skillful type fighter. Cody Haddon's the more skillful fighter, but Aoriqileng Long has some good fight IQ, and he has loads of experience, tons of experience. So I feel like that's what makes him win these certain fights that we may not think Aoriqileng Long could possibly win, guys. And if you guys know who Aoriqileng Long is, Aoriqileng Long's kind of, like I said, okay fighter overall, good fight IQ. I think that's what's going to come down to this fight. Aoriqileng Long needs to use his fight IQ, be smart, time the shots perfectly. His striking's good, but like I said, he's kind of like that non-skillful fighter, but he's just a good entertainer. Cody had, in my opinion, a very good prospect. Even though he has only had one fight in the UFC, if we're not counting the Contender Series, so he's been a prospect, and I think that he absolutely demolishes Aoriqileng Long in this fight. Like I said, I'm a fan of Aoriqileng Long. I want Aoriqileng Long to win. I just don't think so. I think Cody Haddon's the better striker, the better grappler, the better kickboxer, like I said, the better fighter overall. Even though Aoriqileng Long has the longer reach by like 0.3 inches, almost half an inch. But hey, I just say Cody Haddon's the better fighter overall. So give me Cody Haddon to win this one. If Aoriqileng Long has to be very smart on what he does, be cautious, time the shots perfectly, land the knockouts. Because like man, that win, he has to have that. Like that win over Cody Gibson, like I said, very impressive. But Cody Gibson, is a decent fighter. But if Aoriqileng Long wins this fight, in my opinion, that would be such a big upset. In my opinion. But like I said, give me Cody Haddon to win this one by decision. Next up, we got up is Meng versus José Henrique. Now, I like this fight a lot, and it's another tricky fight to score because you got José Henrique, who had a win over Pedro Oliveira at an LFA, fought Yaku Kanesada and lost the fight, beat Alan Silva, beat Alexandre Silva, beating Pavlovich Alves. His striking base is a solid, but losing to Yaksu, knowing that he wasn't really that good of a fighter, most recently lost to Victor Venezuela outside of the UFC, which you just saw which I'm gonna be honest with you, we just saw Victor Venezuela nearly lose to Max Griffin, which is very concerning. But Meng, on the other hand, Meng is a good striker, decent grappler, but he keeps his chin up and he gets clipped a lot. Looking at his losses, lost this fight right here. Then went and had a very impressive win over Quinn Wong, fighting this guy again that he lost to, losing on the Contender Series to Remy Hamed, which we saw him get clipped towards the later rounds, and then most recently capturing a win. And so happened, I watched that fight live actually, guys. And listen, looking at that fight in general, I thought Meng was losing that fight, but José Henrique, when he faces someone as good of a striker, because Yaku's a good striker, you see him get clipped. We saw that in his only loss. I don't know exactly how this fight plays out. I think José Henrique and Meng are kind of like the similar way, except José Henrique actually keeps his chin down. I think José Henrique is not the better striker, but Meng fights a lot of people who aren't better strikers than him, but he just so happens to get clipped because he keeps his chin up like this. He fights like this, and that's not a way you want to fight. I don't know why people fight like that. I feel like there's some people fight like that because they're good at moving, but Meng's not a very good mover. He's kind of a block, in my opinion, he's kind of a blockhead that tries to move forward and tries to handle it. Obviously, we've seen him handle the striking base, but like in the beginning of the rounds, that's where it gets very good. But towards the end of the fight, close to like the third round, that's when I feel like he'll start getting pieced up. So I feel like the first 2 rounds, he's going to be very explosive. He's going to probably beat the dog crap out of Henrique. But I'm curious to see how good will Henrique do when it comes to handling the pressure. I don't think Jose Henrique is going to handle that, and I think Meng knocks out Jose Henrique in the first round. Call me crazy if you guys want, but Jose Henrique's, seeing him get clipped by a guy like Yaksu, who's not that good of a fighter, that is a very concerning. And I'm not mistaken, that was Yaku's last win over Jose Henrique. Other than that, he's like a 3-fight losing streak right now. So for Jose Enrique to lose like that, that's very concerning. And that's why I got Meng winning this fight by knockout. If Jose Enrique can find a way to not get clipped, because he is the taller fighter, he's got to use distance, pop that jab, use that front kick, land those leg kicks. I think that's a possibility of him winning this fight. Other than that, I don't see Jose Enrique winning this fight. So give me Meng to win this fight by knockout. Next up we got up here is Luis Felipe Diaz versus Yuksok Lee. Now listen, man, we've seen Luis Felipe Diaz fight on the Contender Series. Had a very solid win over Devon Hendrick. We saw submission skills before the outside, beat Daniel Oliveira, losing to Luis Cotto, losing to Marcin Mendel, beating Mental and Tatudis. But like Yuksok Lee is a decent fight overall. Beating Shadow Filji, beating Alrak Amber, beating Algid, losing to Algid, losing to Wexry D, beating Daniel McBobby, if I even said that correctly. Listen, for what I've seen from Yuksok Lee is that he does the better work when it comes to the ground, with the ground and pounds, the submissions, strike it like when it's on the feet. I think Luis Felipe Diaz is the better striker. And the thing about this, if he's gonna land a takedown, I think this is a bad stylistic matchup for Yuksok Lee because Luis Felipe Diaz has very good submission skills, the better boxer, the better striker on the feet. He's the better fighter everywhere. Yuksok Lee, I don't want to call him average, but he's kind of like your average decent fighter. And Luis Felipe Diaz, like I said, has some very good submission threats. I think he's going to get the submission win in the first round. You guys call me crazy all you guys want because a lot of you guys actually think Yuksok Lee could possibly go past the first round. I don't think this fight goes past the first round. I would be kind of in shock if this fight would go past the first round. But like I said, give me Luis Felipe Diaz to win this fight by a submission in the first round. Next up. Next up, we got up here is Alex Perez versus Sumudaerji. Now, listen, I like that this fight a lot. This fight could go either way. You got Sumudaerji, who lost to Tim Elliott, which Tim Elliott is still one of the best top 15 fighters, even his most recent loss to Steve Versag, losing to Charles Johnson. So it seemed like Sumudaerji was kind of a flop at first. But then, came back and dominated Mitch Raposos. This was not a split decision. I don't know how they gave it a split decision. Dominated him, was getting back up to his feet. Good on was doing good with the striking, kind of getting affected with the boxing a little bit. But Mitch Raposos is a very underrated boxer. Then you got Kevin Boros. He beat Kevin Boros, which legit went the same way as what he did to Mitch Raposos. Then, dominated Jesus Algar, which that's a solid win. All solid wins. I feel like Alex Perez obviously is a better fighter than all these fighters. I think Mitch Raposos is probably a better striker than Alex Perez. But the thing is, listen, man, Alex Perez now has some heavy hands, man. We saw that in his last fight against Charles Johnson, where he set that left hook up very nice and managed to finish him. Before that, I lost to Jesus, not to Jesus, Ashu Alababiv, which he was dominating Ashu Alababiv for the entire fight until he got submitted. Had that knee injury over to Tsuruya, beating Matthew Nichols, beating Muhammad Mukoyev. Now the thing is, this is a very concerning fight for Sumudaerji because Alex Perez has loads of experience. Even fought for a world title against Deiveson Figueiredo when he was at flyweight. So yeah, he's fought the top dudes. And Sumudaerji, he's a prospect. I think he may be the second best prospect besides Andre Lima. So yeah, but listen, man, because we saw him kind of get affected a little bit with the boxing of Mitch Raposos. And Alex Perez, I would necessarily say he's a better boxer than Mitch Raposos, but he's a heavier puncher than Mitch Raposos, if that makes sense to you guys. Listen, it's a good fight. I could if it passes the first round, I feel like that's when it gets interesting. But I see Alex Perez knocking him out in the first round. I think he may knock him out worse than what he did to Charles Johnson. Super Darjay. Man, this could be a dangerous fight for him. This could not be. Could be an easy night. Could not be. Could be a close fight. Could be a bloody war. Could go either way. And listen, guys, a lot of you guys actually thought Alex Perez kind of flopped. But listen, this guy's only 34, guys. He's not super old, man. A lot of you guys have said this guy should have retired. At first, I kind of thought he did. But then at the same time, he's only 34, guys. This guy has like at least 6 years till he's old. I know like 37 is what you kind of consider somebody very old. So he has at least like 3 years left before you start getting old. But even then, you're not super old at that time either. Depends. I can see Alex Perez capturing a world title, especially if it's Joshua Van. Because like I said, Joshua Van, even though Joshua Van is improving little by little, but I could still see Alex Perez finding a way to beat him though, if that fight was to happen. But give me Alex Perez to knock out Super Darjay in the first round. Next up, Jake Matthews versus Carlston Harris. Now, I know Jake Matthews was supposed to fight Muslim Salikov, which I feel like was a dangerous fight, and I was actually going to pick Muslim Salikov to beat Jake Matthews. But now that it's Carlston Harris, I think should be a very easy night for Jake Matthews. Because you got Carlston Harris, ever since he had that brutal knockout over Shavkat Rakhmonov, it hasn't been getting any better. Beat Jared Gooden, which, kind of outscored him a lot, but Jared Gooden's a solid fighter. Did submit Jeremiah Wells, which is a very solid win. Losing to Chaos Williams, we just saw Chaos Williams knock out the call for Verdetenikov back at UFC Vegas 117. And then we saw Santiago posit. We saw him lose to Santiago, which it was an old veteran fight, which could have got, somebody's getting knocked out, and it so happened to be Harris. I think Harris has taken too many punches to the head, especially with that fight with Shavkat Rakhmonov. Even though Shavkat Rakhmonov, in my opinion, is still one of the best welterweights in the world, even though he's unranked and got cut from the rankings. I still think he's one of the best welterweights in the world, but Shavkat may be out for quite some time now. But Jake Matthews, man, Jake Matthews is kind of a guy where you can't trust him at all. Sometimes he may look like a prospect, sometimes he looks trash. Let's start off by him losing to Michael Morales. But listen, Michael Morales, man, may be the danger for the welterweight division, and he went the whole 3 rounds, man. That's a big deal. In my opinion, that's a win-win. Even though he lost the fight, that's still a win-win, in my opinion, for Jake Matthews. Then he beat Phil Rowe, beating Francisco Pedro, beating Chi, which I thought he was going to lose this fight. Submitted him. But then he lost to Nigel Magny, even though he was beating the dog crap out of Nigel Magny. And legit submitted him, but the referee was like, no, you guys still continuing, which was a very stupid fight. Ended up getting submitted, dominated him. But Nigel Magny is a son of a gun, legend of the sport. Well, from what I've heard. So, yeah, Jake Matthews, man, is a solid fighter overall. But you can't trust this guy whatsoever for crap, bro. You can't trust him at all. You can't trust this guy to, yo, Jake Matthews, I'm trusting you to take care of this baby. You can't even trust this guy for that, man. Jake Matthews is the type of guy where you can't trust this guy not for nothing. Not even to sweep your own floors, man. But I just think that Harris has taken too many punches to the head. And I think it's a very bad fight for Harris. But I'm going with Jake Matthews to win a submission first round. That's what I'm going for. Like I said, I don't trust Jake Matthews at all in this fight, nor will I ever trust this guy a day in my life. Every time he has this fight, I'm like, okay, I can't trust this guy at all. Even though I picked him to lose this fight, even though I didn't make a video about it, but like that was before I started it. But yeah, I figured he was going to lose to Miguel Magny. But yeah, like I said, give me Jake Matthews to win this one by decision. Next up, we got ourselves a interesting fight. Kai Asakura versus Cameron Smotherman. Now, the concern here I have for Cameron Smotherman is that he was supposed to fight Ricky Tercios back at UFC 324, pulled out because he had to pull out because of the weight cut. I would have expected him to move up to 145 instead, but I feel like he stayed at 135 because if at 135 and 145, he would absolutely be cooked. But looking at Cameron Smith of his last 5 fights, him beating Ryan Cruz, him beating Ryan Milano, got into the UFC, beat Jake Hadley, which I think he's currently cut, losing to Cy Sider, which Sider, in my opinion, is one of my favorite prospects in the bantamweight division right now. Losing to Ricky Simone in a close competitive fight. You got Kaya Sakura, who was in the Rising, was at Rising, lost to Permasa, beating Yurki Mantono, beating Juan Alglada, and then got into UFC, was thrown into a title shot with Alexandre Pantoja, which I feel like we all figured that was going to happen. Then loses to Tim Elliott, which I thought he was going to win that fight. That was a very impressive performance from Tim Elliott. So for what we learned from Kaya Sakura is that he can't handle a very good grappling, but this is where I like this fight for Kai because Cameron Smotherman is not that good of a grappler. I feel like he has some grappling, but he's kind of like a decent boxer. And listen, I don't think that it's a good idea for Cameron Smotherman to grapple because he's not, like I said, not that big of a grappler at all. But if he can actually out grapple Cameron Kyle Sakura in this fight, that'll be a very huge win. But I think his cardio is not there. He's an okay striker. I think he may get demolished in this fight. Kyle Sakura. And who knows? Let's see how he looks on the weigh-ins, on the scales, guys. I do not know 100% if he'll win this fight. But give me Kyle Sakura to win a knockout in the second round. I think he survives. I don't think he has been knocked out in his UFC career, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think Cameron Smotherman has been knocked out in his entire UFC career. I think Kyle Sakura will be the first one to do that. Cameron Smotherman, I feel like if I was him, I would try to go for submission early. If you look at those fights, I'm pretty sure he's probably training for grappling. If I was you, I feel like that may be the best chance he has in this fight. But even then, I feel like he would just gas out after the first round for that grappling. So give me Kyle Sakura to win this one by a knockout. Next up, we got the fight I'm very looking forward to in this card. Sergei Pavlovich versus Tallison Teixeira. Listen, I think Tallison Teixeira has Dana White privilege, bro. Because listen, I don't think this guy deserves to fight Sergei Pavlovich though. To be fair, because listen, he beat Matthew Francisco outside the UFC, got his win over Arthur Lopez, beats Justin Taffa. And this is where I actually think he gets Dana White privilege. Because you beat a guy, Justin Taffa, who's a terrible fighter overall. Then you get a fight with Derek Lewis, and you get beat on, and you get whooped in like not even a minute, bro. Gets a fight and loses to and beats Tai Tuivasa in a slot fest fight. Now you're getting the ranked number 3 in the world, Sergei Pavlovich, man, who's a dangerous striker. Listen, look at that Sergei Pavlovich's wins. Beating Curtis Blades, man. Losing to Tom Aspinall, losing to Alexander Volkov, beating Jarzito by a decision, beats the dog crap out of Waldo Cortez Acosta, but Waldo Cortez Acosta, even though he lost to Volkov, which I thought was a robbery, I feel like he should have won. Uh, that's a very good win. But Sergei Pavlovich isn't really as active like that. You know, he fought twice in 1 year, but like he's not always consistently fighting all the time. But like, listen, man, he beat Tai Tuivasa as well. Even though sometimes that kind of doesn't really matter. You know, I've explained that a lot of my videos overall, so I feel like I don't really need to explain it. Well, we've already had two very good heavyweight fights this year. We had Curtis Blades, Josh Hokett. We had Shamil Gaziv, Brando Burrick. So we've had some good heavyweight fights. I think we're going to have another one. I think it's going to be a close fight. I think I don't think that Tallison Teixeira is going to close the distance though. It's going to be a back-to-back war, in my opinion, guys. I see that happening. It's going to be very violent, but who knows? Maybe Tallison Teixeira may get knocked out. But you guys look at the fights. You look at his wins. You guys say, "Oh yeah, he got dropped by Derek Lewis." That fight, I feel like it should have not been stopped that quickly. But just know how dangerous Derek Lewis is. I'm not mad that the ref that I think it was Herb Dean ref the fight. I'm not upset that Herb Dean really stopped it because like shoot one clip punt what you get clipped from Derek Lewis, you could be over. So the referee could basically be saving your life because Derek Lewis hits very hard. But I favor Sergey Blachowicz to get a decision win here, guys. I see this happening. Sergey Blachowicz, better striker. I think the better grappler. I don't think Tallison Teixeira is going to keep his distance. I think Tallison Teixeira wins this fight by a knockout. I feel like if he goes the distance, his cardio is decent. We saw that, we saw him get clipped a lot against Tai Tuivasa. And there were times where he was nearly knocked out, which was very concerning. We just saw Tai Tuivasa crap the bed against Louis Sutherland back at UFC Australia. So yeah, give me Sergey Blachowicz to win this fight by a decision. Now we go up here to our main event. Zhang Mingyang versus Alonzo Menifield. Now listen, I don't know how I feel about this fight because you got Alonzo Menifield who lost to Carlos Ulberg, which Carlos Ulberg is currently the world champion. But hey, he didn't even survive a whole minute with Carlos Ulberg. This dude got knocked out in 12 seconds. Loses to Osman Mirzakhanov, even though Osman Mirzakhanov is still very dangerous, even though he most recently lost to Paulo Costa. Beating Julius Walker in a very brutal fight. Beating Omar Sy, which in my opinion, that was a very big upset. I didn't expect him to beat Omar Sy. Then lose to Volka Ozdemir. So yeah, Alzo Menifield has a terrible chin, and we kind of saw him almost get knocked out by Julius Walker and Omar Sy. And Omar Sy is not the best striker at all. But Zhang Mingyang, he beat Turkos. We just saw him lose to Ivan Islam. Beat Branson, Riboro, beat Ozzy Diaz, which Ozzy Diaz is a terrible fighter overall. Beating Anthony Smith, which that was Anthony Smith's retirement fight. But then we all thought, in my opinion, I feel like we all thought he was going to beat the dog crap out of Johnny Walker, and this guy gets destroyed. Obviously, the first round he beats he beats him. But I feel like Johnny Walker had a game plan the entire time. He didn't touch the gloves, landed the takedown. Because listen, Zhang Ming Young, I feel like once you pass the first round with him, that's when it starts to get very terrible. And I feel like Johnny Walker had a smart game plan. And after he started throwing those calf kicks, and I feel like we found a weakness of Zhang Ming Young. He can't handle calf kicks at all. He really can't. And yeah, it was just a terrible fight. It was just very terrible for him overall. And he didn't really look as impressive in that fight. In that fight with Johnny Walker. And also, and we saw Johnny Walker beat Dominic Reyes, even though he lost the fight. But that was a robbery, man. Johnny Walker should have won that fight. Should have won that fight. There was no reason why he should have not won that fight against Dominic Reyes. But Zhang Mingyang overall is a good. Zhang Ming is still a good fighter. I think it's a very good fight for a comeback fight after losing to Johnny Walker. Give me Zhang Mingyang to win this fight by knockout. This may be lock of the week, guys. Maybe because I'm gonna start doing lock of the weeks, guys, and this may be lock of the week, the co-main event of this fight. But I got Zhang Mingyang. If you guys think that Alonzo Menifield's going to win, okay, listen. Whoever thinks Alonzo Menifield's going to win this fight, I want y'all to comment down below 20 good reasons why Menifield is going to win. And I don't want just because. I want valid answers. Mind you, 20 good reasons. And that's only if you guys think Menfield's going to win. If you guys do not think Menfield's going to win, I don't want to hear 20 good reasons why Jake Young's going to win. Because there's no good. But I want 20. But if you guys think Menfield's going to win, 20 good reasons why Menfield's going to win. 20 good reasons. They have to be valid. But like I said, give me Shang Young to win this fight by a knockout. Now, all right, we got up here the main event. But hey, before we get into the main event, I want you guys to hit that like, subscribe button, and turn on notifications. If you guys are enjoying the content, let's get into the main event. We got up here Song Yadong versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Now listen, man. I know Deiveson Figueiredo is kind of flopping, man. One of the greatest flyweights of all time, but look who he's losing to, though. Losing to Umar Nurmagomedov, who is arguably the number one contender. Losing to Corey Sandhagen, even though it was kind of a fluke loss, though, because of that knee injury. Losing to Peter Yan. Losing to Peter Yan is not a bad loss at all. Peter Yan's currently the champ, man. You know, before that, did beat Chito Ferreira, and his last two wins have been against Motel Jackson and Chito Ferreira, which we just saw Motel Jackson nearly won a fight with Ronnie Barcelos. And Chito Ferreira right now is on like a 4-fight losing streak right now. So yeah, not as good a wins, but yo, he's fought some very good flyweights. And mind you, I think he was the last person before Joshua Van beat Pantoja. And before he was on this big run, if I'm not mistaken, either the second or last person before Joshua Van beat Pantoja. So, not a bad loss. With Song Yadong, man, he's been looking very impressive, man. Beating Ricky Simone, which is a very good fight. Beating Chris Cortez, which Chris Cortez is an okay fighter. Losing to Peter Yan as well. Beating Henry Cejudo, losing to Sean O'Malley, which listen, I thought he beat Sean O'Malley. It was a pretty close fight. I actually kind of thought Song Yadong beat O'Malley, and yeah, but it was still a very close fight. Could have gone either way. But listen, man, Deiveson Figueiredo at this point of his career, I feel like, especially that knee pop injury he had uh, at uh I forgot who exactly where he fought. Corey Sandhagen having that knee pop was insane, and it was very bad. I'm going to go ahead in favor Song Yadong in this fight. But I feel like Deiveson Figueiredo, in my opinion, because Deiveson Figueiredo has some good grappling, but so does Song Yadong, and I see Deiveson Figueiredo getting dominated in this fight and possibly retiring on a long, retiring after this fight. But now that's going to be the end of the video, guys. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. Turn on notifications when you guys want to see what I upload. And comment down below who you guys got waiting for every single fight. Thank y'all for 94 subscribers, man. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all in the next one. I'm out. Peace.